Now we move on to a demonstration of an active attack on WEP. And in this active attack, we're going to be sending ARP requests using AirReplay NG. Suppose we have a Wi-Fi network that is relatively inactive. There's not much traffic on it. So let's try an active attack. We will try an ARP request attack. The way the ARP request attack works is that the Wi-Fi network card that we are injecting frames with is going to be sending ARP requests into the Wi-Fi network. But in order to be able to do that, it needs to authenticate and associate with the network first. So it will do that using AirReplay NG. After it has done that, then it can start the ARP request. What it's going to do is to keep sending ARP requests into the network. Why is that helpful? The reason is that as it's a wireless LAN, the access point must rebroadcast any ARP requests that come in from any associated devices. The reason is that it's supposed to look like a LAN, a broadcast medium. So when an ARP request comes in, it needs to go out to every device in the Wi-Fi network. This means that the access point will be generating these rebroadcasts with different IVs, and this will allow us to capture frames rapidly and eventually have enough frames to find the WEP key with. We begin by looking at the IW config, and we see we have WLAN 0 and WLAN 1. So this time let's try WLAN 1. They're both in monitor mode already, so we don't have to put them in monitor mode. Well, anyway, AeroDump NG will do that for us. I have changed the channel of test 1 to 11, and it shows 11 here as expected. I have also changed the WEP key so it wouldn't be the same as the one that we retrieved in our passive attacks. However, it doesn't show on AeroDump NG, of course, because AeroDump NG just knows that it's using WEP and doesn't know the key at this time. We need to use AirCrack for that later. The way to do an ARP request attack is to use AirReplay. Now we're just going to do this AirReplay attack. We're going to try it without authenticating. Notice that we are not authenticated with test 1. We are just scanning up here with AeroDump. We're just monitoring what's going out in these different Wi-Fi networks. So we don't expect to succeed. But let me just show you. We copy and paste the BSS ID as usual. Paste it here. And then typically we would want to put in our MAC address, but I haven't found that yet. So let me just press enter and do something like this to get our MAC address. IWDEF WLAN1 info. So this is the MAC address. I'll copy this. Then press the up arrow twice to get back where we were and paste it in, and then WLAN1. Now we don't expect this to succeed because we haven't even authenticated with test 1 yet. Furthermore, we see another problem, and this is something that I intentionally made a mistake now to show you what can happen sometimes. This will happen to you sooner or later if you're doing this enough times. Because what happened was that we had WLAN1 monitoring on all these different channels, so we see that it's hopping around between the different channels. At the same time, we're trying to use AirReplay to do an ARP request attack on test 1, which is on channel 11. We find that it's not the right channel, but it's not just on channel 8, it's hopping around. So if we try this again, up arrow and press, then we're going to see that it's going to be on some other channel, not 11. So now it's on channel 6, not channel 11. So this is something that can happen sometimes because we're using multiple different tools, and if you happen to be using the same Wi-Fi card, one tool might be scanning around different channels, the other tool needs it to be sitting on a particular channel. What can we do about this? Well, we can use two different Wi-Fi interfaces. In fact, we have WLAN 0 and WLAN 1. Or we can also stop the scanning on the different channels, since now we have identified that we're interested in channel 11. So we can just then have it go on channel 11. minus C11. So AeroDump NG will be just looking at channel 11. And now we don't have this problem again because AeroDump NG is just sitting on channel 11. And then when we try AirReplay with this BSS ID, it's also needing to go on channel 11. So that's okay. So now we don't have a problem with the channels, but we have another problem. Again, I intentionally did this so that we can see the sorts of things that might happen, and you need to recognize these things and know what to do about them. So we see 0 up request 0x. The reason this is happening is because we forgot to do a fake authentication with this network. We need to do the fake authentication so we get authenticated and associated, then we can successfully do our up request attack. So we stop here and we need to do a fake authentication. The way that we do that is as follows. Also AirReplay NG. Remember, there's different options in AirReplay NG. So -1 is the one for fake authentication. The parameters would be something as follows. 0 for the reauthentication time, minus E test1 because we're interested in ESS ID test1, minus A, the BSS ID. Copy and paste it. Minus H, and we can copy and paste the rest of this. Copy and paste. So we are authenticating and associating our MAC address with test1. We see it's successful. Both the authentication and association are successful. Now we can try our AirReplay NG -3. So this is the up request attack. We can try this again. Before we do that, let's start capturing on AeroDump NG so that then we can use AirCrack NG on the captured frames that are written to a file. We want to specify the BSS ID again here so that we will be filtering out unnecessary BSS IDs on channel 11, such as this other BSS ID here. Copy and paste, and then we want to put the output into a file. Write it to a file test1. Remember that. Let's proceed with this. It's capturing. And we see there's not much data. It's a very idle network, so it's 0. There's only beacon frames that are out in this network. So we can now do our up request attack. And we're off. The data frames are increasing, but it seems to be pretty slow. The reason is that in order for this to work, we need to have at least one up packet that can be replayed. So I'm going to get my iPhone to connect to this network as well. Yes, so I have entered the WEP key on my iPhone. So we see now there's up requests and acknowledgements. And I'm going to open one more terminal to run AirCrack NG. We're up to test1-07. Let's do that. AirCrack NG. And off we go. And there we have it. 06C3D96450 with just 17,512 IVs.